90 days later, I bought a restaurant with Francis. So
90 days?
Literal 90 days. We closed on the restaurant at the end of October. I had messaged him in August, right?
Yeah, wow.
And
the stars aligned that it was next door.
Yeah, I mean, he actually brought up that space in our first meeting, right?
Okay.
And at the time, I guess I didn't really know why he brought it up or where his mind was going, but he brought it up very just casually. I was like, oh yeah, there's a spot open.
He's always planting seeds.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, there's a spot open next to side practice. Be cool if one day we did that, right? And then... Yeah.
Well, it's one thing to plant seeds and inspire, and it's another for you to show up and water, the garden.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. Very
Interesting.
True.
I Am Consciously Curious, a podcast for those that are searching for meaning and fulfillment in their lives. My name is Victor Chan, and I'm on a mission to find out why people do what they do. I've interviewed white-collar to blue-collar, entrepreneurs to passion projects, and life is just too short to not produce meaningful work. Thanks for tuning in. All right, we're live.
Let's do it.
We're live. Julius, how do you say your last name? Tacadena?
Tacadena, yeah.
Tacadena.
Yeah.
How you doing? You seem like a long-lost brother.
Dude, same. Even more so now that we've had drawn the connections.
Yeah,
I'm doing well, man.
Shout out Justine.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Justine. I'm doing well, man. Just day by day.
You're up to a few good, cool, very cool, exciting things.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah.
I almost stopped by the other day and to the upcoming, and I after watching Reels found out how to pronounce Kanin. I was originally going to say Kanin.
Oh, yeah. We should make a little. I don't know what the term is, right?
Like a tilde or like a little
enye or a little pronunciation thing.
Yeah.
Right?
The first time, I mean, you guys announced it before this, but like when you hosted, I don't know if he goes by George or Jorge Clooney, but like that men's kind of like mental health group inside side practice. That was like, wow, they're actually like catering and hosting things and putting on events.
Yeah, that was a cool event. He's known Francis, and I think Francis has been a part of that group for a while,
okay.
right? So I think they reached out to Francis last year, and Novel did it. And then this year it was like he texted me and was like, hey, do you want to take it on? I'm like, sure.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. And so like overall, bird's eye view, how would you describe the current phase that you're currently in?
We are very, very, I would say we're pre-launch, but we're very, very close to launch.
Yeah.
We have one final inspection at the shop to get passed. And we just have a couple of front of the house construction things to do, hang up some art.
That's amazing.
It has come together incredibly quickly. But yeah.
Faster than you think?
Oh my God.
Or faster than you thought you could have?
Light speed, right? Hyper speed. Francis, right?
Yeah.
Like everything he does is just moving at 100 miles an hour. But this was just the process in general. I actually just posted this to my Instagram because Francis posted it this morning. But Francis was a stranger like 6 months ago, right? He was just someone that I followed and admired from afar, right?
Well, you shared the same sentiment about Justin.
Yeah. Same, right? August, I messaged him.
Do you mind if I read it?
No, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. This is yours. Okay. So this is Kuya Jules. Your DM into Francis Almeda's Instagram. It says, "Good evening. My name is Julius, and I own Krackish Snack Company. We are actually popping up at Side Practice next Saturday. I saw your post about breakfast pop-ups, and I have what's probably a strange inquiry, but would you all potentially be open to hosting an early stage concept pop-up? I'm planning on getting an idea off the ground called Mr. Musubi. The current menu concept is pretty simple. Spam, tocino, musubi with garlic rice, and a rotating special like Portuguese sausage or longanisa. We would operate under the Krackish umbrella as we have a commercial kitchen rental where we could prep and also hold all necessary food certifications plus a City of Chicago pop-up license. Please let me know if that's something you would be open to hosting. Thanks for the time." That's amazing. And it just spawns from there.
Yeah. They had posted something on Instagram about, hey, we want someone to do breakfast pop-ups. And I talk about this all the time, but I remember that exact moment. I was sitting on the couch with my wife and my brother-in-law who helped me with well, they also own Krackish, right?
Okay.
And I was like, hey, I think this would be cool. And my wife looked at me and was like, you got a lot going on. Is that something that you want to do? And in my mind at the time, I was like, I'll sell a couple dozen musubi every, so often, right? Like, where could this possibly go? And 90 days later, I bought a restaurant with Francis. So
90 days?
Literal 90 days. We closed on the restaurant at the end of October. I had messaged him in August, right?
Yeah, wow.
And
the stars aligned that it was next door.
Yeah, I mean, he actually brought up that space in our first meeting, right?
Okay.
And at the time, I guess I didn't really know why he brought it up or where his mind was going, but he brought it up very just casually. I was like, oh yeah, there's a spot open.
He's always planting seeds.
Yeah, he's like, there's a spot open next to side practice. Be cool if one day we did that, right? And then... Yeah.
Well, it's one thing to plant seeds and inspire, and it's another for you to show up and water, the garden.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. Very
Interesting.
True.
But there was something inside you that felt compelled enough to share your work or wisdom or experience with Musubis with other people.
Yeah, it was... Musubi has always been a staple of our childhood. So I grew up in Hawaii. My wife grew up in Hawaii, as with my brother-in-law, and really all my family, right? And the way I always explain it to people is here, in I guess in what we call the mainland, right? You can just go to a convenience store and they have hot dogs, they have whatever it is, right? Just at your normal convenience store. But in Hawaii, it's in addition to that, they sell musubis. And all the time living here in the States, like at least in the mainland States, I always miss that, right? Like I wish that I could just walk into a store and grab a musubi, but I can't. And so we make them at home from time to time. And I've always just thought like, hey, it's simple enough. It's not flashy, which I think is a representation of the food I like to cook, and I haven't met anyone that doesn't like it after they try it. So why not? Yeah.
I know. I'm tied up here on Sundays, but I've been missing your musubi Sundays.
Oh, yeah, we'll make sure you get some, man. We'll make sure you get some.
You're in an interesting spot, being a tech recruiter. Coincidentally, the friend that I was meeting up with is also a tech recruiter for another tech company. I didn't know that was the industry. I should have, because of the email you gave me. But do you ever do you reflect and you're like, wow, I have this position where I have the flexibility to do the work, do good work, and still have free time to work on a potential side hustle and be a good husband and father.
Yeah, I think about that often. Very blessed. I understand that it's not a position that a lot of people find themselves in. Yeah. But I've been very blessed to do what I do for a long time, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, taking you over the country, like all over the country,
all
right?
over the place. Okay. Yeah. I started this journey, at least in my tech, career here in Chicago. I moved out to Portland for quite a few years. Worked for a company out there, and then I got an offer to move down to San Francisco, where I worked for Meta, and then the pandemic hit, and it was stay in San Francisco or go somewhere else. And we found ourselves back here.
But continue to do the same work?
Continue to do the same work, right? I worked for Meta. Meta has an office here, and then now transitioned to Pinterest, where I am right now.
Wow.
But the constant that's been in my career for the past few years is I've worked for the same manager.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was at Meta, and now she's at Pinterest, and none of this is possible without her, right?
And I'm sure other people say the same about you.
No,
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. But when I say I'm blessed, a lot of times, sometimes I talk to people who feel like they have to hide their side hustles, right? And
during an interview?
No. When I say like hide, like I mean like they have a full-time career, and sometimes they want to pursue something outwards, but they don't know how that would reflect on them at their current career, whether or not that's taking time away from their job.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
And that couldn't be further from what I'm blessed to have at my job, because I've been very open about that with my with my manager and my team,
Yeah.
right? And they've been nothing but supportive. So right now the schedule is just my 9 to 5, which is really 11 to 7 because most of my team is in Pacific time. And then finding time in the off hours.
That's wild.
to do
I have so many, at least a handful of questions in the sense of, at the current moment, a lot of offices are returning to in-person. Like, is that kind of, do you feel that coming for you guys?
No, we, again, very blessed that at Pinterest, they haven't implemented an RTO or return to office. It's in fact kind of moved in the opposite direction of sort of, encouraging folks to work from wherever they want, as long as, the work is getting done. And, there are times where we have to fly in for meetings and things like that. There is a little bit of travel involved, but no, for the most part, everyone gets work
only tough part, if I were to guess, is for at least larger companies, how do you maintain some level of culture if you don't ever see each other in person?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, it's one thing to drive culture at a company level and then another thing to drive it at a team level, right? And you're absolutely right. You really can't replicate being around each other every day. It's just hard to, right? But, I think the balance in there is, one, do you trust your team to do the work and do it well? And in the times that you do get to spend with each other, whether it's virtual and in person, do you make the most of it, right? And so for our individual team, what that looks like is often, meeting, virtually, obviously when you need to, every week, every day sometimes, and then planning some what we call, on-sites where everyone flies in, gets to spend time with each other, whether it's for a few days, for a week, whatever that looks like. Within recruiting, there's also events that recruiters often do or companies often do where we fly out to other, whether they're conferences or other events hosted by other companies, where we get to see our teammates too, right? But you're right, it is difficult. It is difficult.
Yeah. So from an outsider's perspective, are you at the intersection of tech and HR? So like you have to have some foundation of tech verbiage and maybe the software that engineers have to know how to use, as well as just very great soft people skills.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. 100%. We're within a recruiter's role, we're oftentimes the first contact that a person or a candidate might have with that company. Right. And, we rely on folks that are much more technical than ourselves to kind of help throughout the interview stage, obviously, inform the candidate and ultimately test the candidate on their technical knowledge. But yeah, it's definitely at that intersection of, hey, we're kind of the first stop here. Tell me more about yourself and why you're interested in working, at our company. And taking it from there.
It's so interesting that despite the company, we choose to and ultimately work with the people we want to work with, like your manager.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's like the recommendations that you were given on at least your LinkedIn page shared how you upheld the values that the companies that you represented stood for. And you were a great facilitator in the sense of like making sure applicants were kept in the loop, and you informed them on the next steps and things like that. Yeah.
I think that's at its core, I think what a good recruiter does. And I tell this to every candidate that I have worked with. It is our job to sit here and wave the flag like, hey, we want you to join Pinterest, right? We've reached out to you for a reason, or we're continuing with your application process for a reason, right? But at the end of the day, a person is going to choose what is best for them, whatever their goals are, personal, professional, where they live, where they want to go, if it's a role right. And sometimes it's not a right fit and sometimes it's the perfect fit. And all we can do is put them in a place where they can make the most informed decision and they feel good about that process as they get to that stage, right? I think the interview process in itself is often daunting, and it's exponentially daunting
multiple
sometimes.
Steps.
Yeah, especially in the tech world, right? We're sort of in this post-COVID area now, where a lot of things are virtual, but pre-COVID at most top tech firms, we're talking like when I was at Meta, we would fly people in for their interviews.
Yeah.
You know,
because they were worth that much.
Yeah, no, literally every single person was flown in. They got to see the campus. We put them up in a hotel room. But then on the day of their interview, we stick them in a room and have them whiteboard code for 6 hours.
Oh,
right. In front of some of the smartest people in the world. Right.
Wow.
And so it was, now that we've transitioned into this, like you said, there's some companies that may still be doing that, but a lot of folks are now doing that virtually. And so to do that for multiple rounds, and if you think that, well, one person's interviewing with one company, oftentimes they're interviewing with 2, 3, 4 other companies. So they're doing this process 4 times over, right? And so oftentimes what sticks out or what makes the difference is what their interview process was and their experience working with that company. And I think the recruiters play a pretty big role in that.
So to make it as frictionless as possible?
Yeah, exactly. Frictionless, and ultimately...
Or even fulfilling.
Yeah, exactly. Fulfilling, quick, as quick as it can be, you know, and oftentimes, you know, the biggest speed bumps are often simple ones, right? We don't follow up quick enough. And this is not to make excuses, but oftentimes, you know, a recruiter may be juggling 20, 30, 40 different candidates, upwards of that in different industries, right? And so it's sort of up to that individual to make sure that everyone is abreast of where they stand and providing updates in a timely manner, getting to the right stage, scheduling the right calls. You know, when you do that with 30 different people, sometimes things fall through the crack, and it's our job to make sure that doesn't happen, right? Or at least the good ones. So,
is there anything you can do or that you do to have the sense that they might be a good fit in addition to just their resume prior to this interview? Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, it's sort of like a sixth sense, right? And it really just depends on the values of the company, I guess, that you work for and what you're interviewing for, right? And oftentimes sometimes people have the luxury, or companies have the luxury of being picky, right? But you know, when we look at the qualitative versus quantitative, right? The quantitative is, okay, this person has 10 years of experience doing this. They can code with their eyes closed.
Like how do you vet what someone cares about, and if those values align with the company's values?
You know, there's only so much that you can do in a short amount of time, right? And how do you learn someone's entire personality and their life story in a 45-minute interview? But oftentimes it's asking questions about how they would respond to certain situations, right? Tell me about a time where you've managed ambiguity. Tell me about a time on how you've worked through a difficult process or influence change with people who are resistant to that change. And oftentimes the story they tell and how they tell that story kind of indicates what that person does to work through challenging times. Because at the end of the day, it's when times are easy, it's easy. A lot of people can thrive in easy conditions, right? But it's when your back's up against the wall, which oftentimes is all the time, and depending on how stressful your team is and the projects you're trying to push, you know, how do you get through that? And like I said, at the end of the day, there's this intangible feeling of hey, this person's personality feels like they were just a good fit, you know?
Sure.
How
has what's the current supply and demand of both engineers as well as recruiters? Because the only thing I could find was it's kind of old now. It's like 2 years, even 2 years ago, it felt like it was drying up. Like the demand for more engineers or even recruiters, and with the onset of AI, it's like what's becoming more automated.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The world we live in is vastly different than it was when I started working in this industry, right? And you know, as time progressed, I feel like COVID was probably a big inflection point of big tech companies were driving huge profits, had the ability to hire a ton, teams were often doubling, year over year, which is massive, right? Sometimes, good growth sometimes is 10 to 15 to 20%, right?
Yeah.
But when you say, oh, we're growing 30, 40, 50%, that's insane, and so to your point, as time has gone on, and the market has become more saturated with talent, and the current talent that is, in the industry continues to gain experience. Some companies are still growing at a rate that oftentimes they struggle to keep up with, and some companies unfortunately have gone through labor reduction. It really just depends on the position of the industry and the product that you're in. So, for example, if you're in a service like Pinterest or social media in general, right? A lot of the product focuses on things like your search feed, your algorithm, your timeline, your recommended posts, your thing, insert whatever. And a lot of that, to your point, is AI driven or ML driven.
You said ML?
It's called machine learning.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Right. And so, in so many words, how do you teach a computer to recognize patterns and hone in on those patterns, and then make sure that pattern is individually adjusted to the person, right? And yes, there is potentially a point where, hey, can we rely on computers to just write that code for us? Sure, but you still have to train that computer to do it, and there's got to be a person behind that, right?
Yeah.
At least that's my take.
I heard some of these engineers are making $1 million salaries.
Oh man, yeah. I mean,
that's insane, and that allows money solely to become someone's motivation to do this. And how often do you find applicants a couple of years down the line searching or yearning for something deeper? If money isn't filling that void, if money is no longer doing it for them,
it's. There are definitely I think crossroads that some people come to where, like, hey, I've been making neurosurgeon money for X amount of years, right? I want to work on something cool. And there are definite, there's different fronts to tech. Some people look to, the crypto area or Web3 as kind of, hey, this is where we need to pioneer technology moving forward. Some people are looking to, again, machine learning, artificial intelligence programming, large language models, things like that, where the industry is shifting towards. But again, as technology grows, some technology dies, right? And oftentimes, I find a lot of engineers just trying to keep up with the trends is already a full-time job, right? And not getting caught in this, I'm stuck in the past, I've segmented myself into this area of technology where my skill set is no longer useful, right? Even learning simple things like coding languages.
Okay, so
right?
so the challenge of keeping up with things.
Yeah.
Okay.
But to your point, right? Is it money driven? I mean, absolutely, right? And nobody wants to work for free. But tech can be a very lucrative space if you are very, very good at what you do. And to your point, some people make eye-watering amounts of money, and it's hard to get them to move for anything less, right? But there comes a point where your value to a certain company may diminish if you are making too much, and that product simply isn't making enough, right? And that this happens time over time, right? So
it's very interesting. It's like where you are in tech and what you're able to do for other people juxtaposed with the simplicity of life in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like what's enough, It's like It's so interesting, and I'm not knocking anyone for wanting more. It's just like, but when you spend some time there, it's like, what do you really need?
1,000%, man, 1,000%. And that's sort of that's something I think about often because I would love to move back, right? But again, sometimes, as you look into this current age, paradise, people have been priced out of paradise, right? and it's hard to live at home sometimes when the cost of living and the price of certain goods have just been crazy, right? Not to your point, living at home is there's different ways that you can look at it. Like, yes, it's very expensive to live in Hawaii if you want to live on a beachfront mansion and drive, your drop top convertible all over the place. Yes, very expensive. But if you're from the country where I grew up, and you don't need all of that, it's definitely more expensive than your normal day-to-day life here, but you can make it work if that's something that's important to you, which I think it is. I think we want to get back to there at some point.
Where is it, Oahu?
I'm from Kauai.
Oh, you're from Kauai. Oh, okay, cool.
Me and my wife grew up there, and then I moved here at the beginning of high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I saw a reel of a helicopter tour go down near Nepali.
Oh, super sad, man. Super sad. We saw that, and it's terrible.
I think they like landed, but just like the whole aspect of it. I mean, sure, there might have been others, but they had to do an emergency landing.
Yes. Well, there was an accident.
The Kalalau Trail.
Yeah, there was an accident. Well, I guess I don't really remember when the accident was, but to that point, like helicopters go. I mean, that you're talking about dozens of flights a day, right?
Yeah.
And so. The emergency landing that happened there, and there's planned landings at the Jurassic Falls that happen every day, so.
I saw you had a post in North Shore. That's why it made me think of Oahu. And I had this dreamy hopia bar that I have never been able to find. So if that's something you want to put on your dessert menu with kanin, a little coconut, a little ube, little pie crust on the bottom.
We did our version of that, actually, a little version of that. Not necessarily because those hopia bars are, we definitely love to do that too, but something I did at a Tita Tootsie's pop-up not too long ago was a ube rice pudding parfait, and so we had
nice. Okay.
We had a pie crust at the bottom, and then we had or a macadamia nut pie crust. We had hopia pudding, and then ube rice pudding on top, and served in these little containers. And man, they flew.
Oh heck yeah!
So yeah, we'll have to do something like that in the future. Yeah, why not?
So to back up a little even more, like how did you find yourself in tech or in recruiting? Did you just follow your joy or desire of tech, and then you went down the engineering path, and then you found yourself in recruiting, or how did that all play out?
I've always been a bit of a nerd personally. You and I were talking before the show started, but I'm a huge gamer. I like to build my own hardware from time to time, but I honestly got I fell backwards into this career, man. Like I guess you could call it luck. I was working in the restaurant industry at one point, and a friend of mine who I went to high school with, she posted on Facebook that her company was hiring, and I'd never worked in an office setting before, but here I am, working 70, 80-hour weeks sometimes, and I was like, man, I'm kind of over this. Maybe a 9-to-5 doesn't sound so bad, but I just took a chance and messaged her, and what it turned out to be was a front desk associate at a technical staffing firm, like a tech recruiting staffing firm, and I interviewed and I got the job. Not sure how. I've looked like this, Mom. You walk into this building and here's this huge Filipino sitting at the front desk. But I think at the end of the day, hospitality and just being a smiling face is something I'm good at.
The willingness to learn, yeah.
Yeah, why not? And so I took that job, and I worked in it for a few months, and at some point, one or another, the conversation started going, hey, you're working here in the front desk, but do you want to work in the back and be a recruiter? This company, effectively the model here was, companies hire for contractors or tech contracting work, and this company fills it, just like any other staffing agency. And I said, sure, why not? I'm open to it. It sounds like this job relies on people skills, and I feel like I can do that. And
despite no technical know-how, just connecting, connecting people.
Just talking and connecting and learning more about people, and connecting the dots. Hey, you do this company's hiring for this, and we think it'd be a good fit. Let's prep you for this interview.
Did you ever feel like you had to sell something?
Yeah. There's definitely a salesy aspect to anything in recruiting, because at the end of the day, you're trying to sell an open position, right? An applicant has a million different ways of where they want to go, right? And why should they take the job that you're offering? And so there's definitely a sales component to it, but at least in that space of placing contractors into roles, was definitely, I think, skewed a little bit more sales than what I do right now, which is more internal corporate recruiting, right? But yeah, I mean, I got into that company and took on this new role and never really looked back.
Was there a point where you had to gain more technical skills?
Yeah, I would say so. Throughout the years, you kind of learn these technical terms. You figure out industry trends. Here's the thing, though, right? Is at the end of the day, a recruiter can only do so much before we pass you on to a technical screen, which is really where the bulk of screening someone's technical skills are.
Wasn't too needed.
Yeah. Even more so on a contracting firm, or at least on a technical staffing firm, because you really just need to kind of understand their basic level of understanding of this position, and is it a good fit or is it not? And then if it is, moving them on to the next step where eventually that will all be kind of screened for, right? Gotcha. So you're not really doing a whole lot of that yourself. And to an extent, even in my current, position, we still definitely have to understand your technical skills and talk to it to some degree. But recruiters are not going to be like, hey, all right, now that we're done talking, write some code for me. So could I decipher some of it? Maybe, right? I've been doing this long enough, but I'm definitely not going to be the person that can walk into an engineering manager's office like, yeah, you need to hire this guy, without having him interview with other folks first, gal. Yeah. Very
interesting. Pinterest as an app, do you feel like it's underrated at this point in time?
I do. Yeah.
Where should, why are people sleeping on it, and how can it help people in their, let's say, small business lives?
Man, I use Pinterest now more than ever, right? As we're trying to get this shop up and running and trying to figure out what's the front of the house going to look like, right? What's the vibe we're going for in here? Truth be told, I wasn't a huge Pinterest user even when I started working there.
Yeah. At its core, you would describe it as like a mood board type platform.
Yeah. You know what it is? It's an inspiration driven platform. And I think that's what makes it undervalued and unique in terms of what you would compare it to in its other social media partners, right? Because in other social media sites and apps, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, it's connection with other folks through content, right? In terms of content in a place of anything from, hey, here's a picture of my birthday party in Vegas, to, well, we just bought a new house, I'm going to announce it here, right? But Pinterest is unique in a sense of it reduces all that outside noise, right? You don't come to Pinterest to catch up with your buddy from high school. You come to Pinterest to figure out what you want your new living room to look like because you just bought a house, right? And yeah, sometimes you stumble upon content that maybe shouldn't be there. But for the most part, it's just a happy place to be, right? Like, oh man, that's cool. That's a cool paint color. I've never seen that before. Even as we're trying to build out the Kanin storefront, like I find myself on there all the time trying to find different posters or different pieces of art or just different ideas of how we want this place to be, because for a long time we were trying to figure out like what's the vibe in the store going to be like, and I don't think we would have gotten to where we are in our planning phase right now if it wasn't for that app, because we've done a lot of our inspiration from there. We've gotten a lot of our inspiration.
Yeah. So like where can small makers, creators, or small business owners utilize Pinterest in their whole funnel of marketing?
Yeah. So it really just depends. I mean, there's a lot of content creators that are on Pinterest right now who have a huge following just based on whether it's a very specific niche of content, right? So people may follow interior design content, right? If you're an interior designer, you're trying to keep up with the trends, right? Artists follow other various artists, right, on different things. Small business owners, I think that, you know, if you're a small business owner, you can use it in a variety of different ways.
Or you can link to things through each content?
Yep.
So like affiliate marketing then?
Yeah. You can definitely link to different things. We're also partnered with retailers now where we're trying to bridge that gap between is this a place to be inspired and is this also a place to shop?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a big thing too.
Yeah, TikTok shopping.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of the direction that Pinterest is
Does
heading
Pinterest
in.
have videos now, or it's just still images?
Yeah,
they do.
Videos, yeah, short form videos.
Oh, interesting.
You can, hey, here's I designed my new living room. A little short form video of what that looks like now.
I'll take another gander.
Yeah, you can even if you find a pin that you like, you can press and hold it, and it'll analyze different things within that photo, and it'll show you different, like, oh, you like this style of art. Here's some, recommended things that might be similar.
Very cool.
Yeah.
At this point in time, you're kind of straddling multiple worlds. Do you ever feel like you'll fully leave that world into the small business owner world?
I think about that a lot. For the time being,
without putting a deadline on it,
yeah,
it's just where does your fulfillment these days come from?
Right now, I have no plans to leave my career. I love my career. I love what I do. And it's honestly, I've gotten to a point right now where a lot of this stuff, I get to do almost second nature. Right?
Yeah. You've created processes,
yeah.
and it's become streamlined.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. If Krackish or if the restaurant it blows up, we could be having a completely different conversation. But the plan has always been to pursue these things and build them out, and eventually, I would love to have them run itself, right?
Yeah.
And just watch this vision come to life, and then tackle the next project or watch this grow, whatever that looks like. Right now, we're just kind of going step by step. But I never got into entrepreneurship with the thought of, all right, I'm doing this to leave my job. And maybe that's unique, maybe that isn't. And honestly, I think that's, again,
well, it's liberating. I talked about this with one of my current with one of my last guests, and it's liberating to not have to depend on this for income.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's a very blessed place to be, right? Not a lot of people have that opportunity, and for me, I just wanted to take advantage of it because, like you said, a lot of folks sometimes jump into entrepreneurship and go all in, and maybe one day I'll do that, right?
Like no backup plan.
Yeah, exactly. But
all gas, no brakes.
Exactly. But hey, my backup plan is a career that I've spent the better part of a decade and a half building, and I love what I do, and we'll just see where it goes from here.
Yeah. So that being said, having experienced 70, 80-hour work weeks in hospitality, you still wanted to come back to food.
Yeah, I don't.
But maybe because it's your own thing, it's different now.
Yeah. No. Well, and that's. There it is that's where it lies. It's like I've always wanted to do my own thing. Now, I always thought that I was going to do what I do right now in my career and tackle my own restaurant if I retire early, right? Something along those lines. I've always had this dream of opening up a little restaurant where I just get to cook for everybody, and
it's that. I think to me, you might resonate with this too, but that's the sweet spot. So like instead of blowing up, it's the ability to just take care of you and your family with one thing. So like Doug Sohn from Hot Dogs did an episode on joiners recently, and it's like he had this magical spot, this hot dog joint, and it's like, but what would blowing up do for you? Like blowing up in the sense of imagine nationwide Kanins, but would it still be as charming?
It probably wouldn't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to maintain at least that charm.
Yeah, for sure. No, don't get me wrong. Like that would be crazy, and I'm not gonna say no.
You wouldn't say
right?
no.
I wouldn't say no, because that would, to watch a dream like something like this small blow up to something that big would be crazy. But to your point, and what I always have said about why I do what I do, I just want to feed people. I just want to cook. I have nothing but the utmost respect for folks who run large operations, multiple locations, or even a single location that has 3 Michelin stars. Like, there's a lot of grinding and work that goes into that, and perfecting every little detail, and making sure everything runs smoothly. And I know that we're going to get to that spot, but at its core, my vision of hospitality in food, like I said, is I don't want anyone to go hungry, right? And I've always said that food is my love language, and so I just love to share that passion, and that's maybe a bit cliche, because everyone loves food, right? And there's a lot of people that love to cook, that do what they do. There's a lot. I mean, almost any restaurateur or chef will tell you this is why I do what I do, is because I just love to cook and feed people. But my vision of food I've never really had aspirations for 100 Kanin franchises in the country. I've never had aspirations for a 3 Michelin star restaurant. That's just not what I thought, I wanted my food and hospitality to look like. I just want to have a nice little shop where if you're hungry, you can come in and eat and chill and cruise, and I can cook for you, or someone will cook for you, grab a bite to eat and be on your way, or stay and hang out, whatever you want to do,
Yeah, I can appreciate that. It really reminded me of Lawrence from Bayan Ko.
Oh, Chef Lawrence is amazing. God, talk about someone who just wants to feed you until you roll out of the door. Like, I brought a cousin of mine was visiting a few months ago, and I had never been to Bayan Ko. I've met Chef Lawrence, obviously, but my cousin was like, "Hey, let's go out to dinner." And I was like, "Oh, I just saw Chef Lawrence. Let's go check out the diner for dinner and whatnot." And man, we showed up, and everything was outstanding. And obviously, Chef showed us nothing but a great time, and all the food coming out was just so good.
Yeah, I gotta go back. I've been once. Yeah,
so good.
So then, tell me, because Justine mentioned that you would bring these to parties.
Yeah.
The Krackish, and were they called something similar back in the day, or you would call them crack, or as a joke be like, this is like crack, guys?
That's kind of the running joke, right? I mean, it's just Furikake Chex Mix is at its core, but it's kind of one of those things where like you eat one piece or a handful, and then next thing you know, the bag is gone, right? It's addicting, and so that's kind of the play on the name, right? And it's like crack-ish, right? Definitely open with caution.
But it's like, you haven't. How long has Krackish been going on for? It's not that long.
Oh no, man!
This is so well done.
I appreciate it.
This, because you used to Sharpie it on the bags.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Shout out to my designer partner at Tiny Bold, Allison. She is amazing. I partnered with her to come up with what the concept of the packaging would look like, and I'll tell you, it's like the one thing that we get the most compliments on.
I love it.
She made the vision come to life.
The names like Rooster, the OG, the Bean.
Yeah. But yeah, we used to just make this in pans and bring it to family parties, right? And then one day someone was like, "You should sell this." When I say one day, this is literally last January. I made my first bag of Krackish, wrote on it, and handed it out to some friends. I was like, "Hey, try this." By May, we had fully launched the brand and had all of this done.
Sorry, when was the first bag you handed out? November, December?
Last December, January 2024.
Like 2024?
Yeah. Like a year ago.
Wait, so 2023 or 2024?
2024.
2024. And that's just a month ago? Or 2023?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so like January 2024.
January 2024.
Yeah.
A year ago.
Yeah.
A year ago. That's it. That was your first bag.
First bag. We rolled out. We wrote on Sharpie. We were coming up with the names, perfecting the product and the ingredients. I was just going to Jewel and buying different types of pretzels and what was going to go in here. And slowly but surely we got to the flavors that we have now. We named them, and then I reached out to Allison at Tiny Bolt to design the packaging. We found a manufacturer to make the bags, and then we were off and running and launched in May, June. We found ourselves with a very, very good launch, and now you can find us in a few stores.
Yeah, I saw some reels at Gangnam.
Yep. Gangnam was our first brick and mortar partner. Shout out to Phil.
You went straight to the retail. It's just like usually the guests that come on is like usually popping up here and there, or maybe independent retailers.
Yeah, that was the plan. I'm not gonna lie to you. The plan was just to pop up and do small things. But I was talking to one of my best friends, Noah, and he knew Phil Morales, who runs.
I haven't met Phil. I'm not sure.
So,
I still haven't been to the market.
Oh, well, they did a lot of content for Gangnam, and Noah called me one day.
Or Catch and Phil's?
Catch and Phil's.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know him virtually.
Yeah,
okay.
Catch and Phil's. Okay. They were doing content at Gangnam, and Noah was like, "Hey, we know Jimmy, who's the social media guy here, and we think that the product could do really well there. Why don't you try and pitch him?" And so I showed up literally while they were filming an Instagram, reel, and I brought samples of everything. I handed him to Jimmy. He ran upstairs and handed them out, and came down with an order. It was literally a shout out to Jimmy. It's amazing. We're actually going to be there this weekend because it's going to be their Lunar New Year.
Okay.
So we'll be doing samples, and Krackish will be one of the vendors there. But they ordered a few cases. We fulfilled the order the next day. We got on their shelves.
Was there a party that's like, I don't know if I can fulfill this? Or it's just at that cusp.
We were doing, and we still do manageable orders, right?
Okay.
That's kind of the big thing of like, I know a few people that I absolutely probably could have pitched to the big guys, the Jewels, the Krogers, but the whole thing with them is they have their MOQs, their minimum order quantities are in the thousands, and right now it's me and my brother making this in a commercial facility in Naperville, right?
Wow.
And we make this by hand, by pan. And when you think of a Jewel Osco, they're going to order thousands of units, right? So Gangnam was a unique opportunity to get in a fairly large retailer that is still independent, but still has a huge level of reach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're so happy they gave us the opportunity and to get on the show.
They're like a hip 88 marketplace.
There you go. Exactly.
88 marketplace is hip too.
Yeah,
but all the neon lights and the restaurants make it fun.
But yeah, we got on their shelves. We were their top selling product for a while there. It was crazy.
And so you felt this momentum. What did you feel like was next then after Gangnam?
Well, to be honest with you, we had this big, we shot out of the gates hot, right? We got into Gangnam, we got into a couple of other places, some small other stores. We're in Andale Market up in Andersonville.
Still gotta go.
Yeah,
Mia, right?
Yep, Mia.
Okay.
Shout out to Mia again, amazing. She hosted us there and got us on the shelves, and we're in a few other places. We're in a small snack shop in Hawaii. We're in.
What does that mean to you? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's crazy too, right?
So when we're like we had that conversation about juxtaposing, the lifestyle here with Hawaii. How saturated would it be to try to sell these snacks or even musubis in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Would it be tough too?
I wouldn't say it would be tough, but it would be one of those things where it's definitely more saturated than here, right? So that's kind of the novelty of it all is these are very unique here. Very not unique at home.
Yes.
But if I were to go home and open a Chicago hot dog stand, I'd probably kill it, right? So no one's doing that. Or at least there's actually, well, funnily enough, there is someone doing that, but no one doing it on my island. But
that's got to mean so much to you.
It means the world, man.
As far as who we deem not valuable, but like who we want to be seen by.
Yeah. It was definitely cool to be, to say like, hey, like that's my, like, to watch your product in someone's shopping cart is like it's crazy, you know, to get you to see it tagged on social media, people bringing it to places, you know, I've seen people bringing it on plane trips that say like, now you're even saying like, man, these have been in different countries now. Right.
Oh,
that's super cool. Now, again, you know, we're not Frito-Lay or anything, but, it's super cool. And, you know, when I look back at June and July, and I had all these plans of like, hey, Krackish is just gonna, you know, what's the next step? Where do we go here? Do we saturate these markets? Do we focus on direct to consumer? Do we focus on direct to business? Do we focus on private label? We do some private labeling of Krackish for a hospitality group up in Hawaii. You know, we had all these plans, and then we launched Kanin, and now it's just like,
it's like two waves colliding. It's
my God, man. It's because, yeah, we popped up at Side Practice, and that sort of spurred the whole like conversation with Francis. But truth be told, like 90% of my effort has been going into Kanin, right?
100%. Yeah.
And we've been, and that's what's still blowing my mind is our orders continue to increase for Krackish without us really doing a whole lot of marketing for it.
Do you see where they're coming from?
Yeah, we a lot of it right now is our retail stores, right?
Okay.
So Gangnam's orders steadily go up. Mia over at Andale Market, I mean, they're burning through cases up there, right? Which is awesome. And obviously we sell at Side Practice. We'll sell at Kanin when we launch the shop.
Yeah.
But the focus for the last few months has just been getting the store up and running, and Krackish has just sort of been in this maintenance mode, right?
Beautiful.
And so maybe 2025 we'll continue to expand marketing and see where this goes.
Was this also Side Practice for your brother?
Yeah. He, you know, he's been, couldn't do this without him. He owns, you know, half a Krackish, and now he's a part owner of Kanin. But I think this is an opportunity for him to pursue something and to own it, right? And to.
Was there ever a moment where you wanted your wife to be in this?
She's a huge part of this. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, again, none of this possible without her. Anything that needs to happen, she's in it. Where do I go?
Yeah.
The baby's down. Am I wrapping musubi or am I packaging Krackish? Like, when I tell you this woman is superhuman, it's crazy.
Okay.
You know, and that's on top of her 9 to 5 where she's a behavioral therapist, right?
Oh,
so, not possible without her. She's involved in everything, and as such owns, you know, everything as well.
So when you do have time to breathe and put some more effort into this, is it more retailers for you? I mean, you briefly talked about it, or do you feel like you'd get more margins going straight to consumer?
We definitely have more margins going straight to consumer. But retail makes up a large bulk of what we're doing right now, in addition to our private
a little bit more
labeling.
automated then, right?
Yeah. The next step here is to find a manufacturer, or to create our own manufacturing process.
That seems to be a big hurdle, like the next big hurdle.
It's a massive
CPG
hurdle.
Brands,
So yeah, exactly. In the CPG world, when you talk about, you know, MOQs or minimum order quantities, it's not only on the distribution side, but it's also on the manufacturing side. Because for us to even be considered to be on a manufacturing line, so for one, we have to find the right manufacturer who'd be able to replicate what we're doing, at least to a certain degree. And then two, you're probably having to commit to at least 10 to 15,000 pounds of it, right? And so there's this point of like, all right,
are there creative ways to finance it though?
Oh, there's definitely creative ways. You can obviously bootstrap it. You can raise the money however you want to. But, you know, the point of you're just getting the money wherever you're going to get the money from, if it's not going to come from you, which I'll have to raise money at some point, want to raise money from somewhere. We have to have a proof of concept, right? And I would want to show any potential investors like, hey, here's the sale. So once we get Kanin launched and we can get this into a little bit more of a steady state, and I can actually have solid projected numbers, then you know, get it to a place where we can get it manufactured, reduce our cost per goods, and then you know, start to expand where we sell and how we sell and how many we sell. So we'll see.
Yeah. Tell me about your first pop-up with Kanin.
First pop-up at Kanin was at Novel, just down the road, and that was crazy. In true Filipino time,
And
we were late.
when was this? Filipino time.
This is second week of September.
2024?
Yeah, September
Okay.
24,
Okay.
somewhere along those lines. It was end of August or early September. I can't really remember at this point.
Summer.
But yeah, summer. We just posted on socials, and I very quickly put together a few concepts, right? So we did longanisa musubi, we did a corned beef musubi, we did the spam musubi, we did a veggie musubi, and then we did some sweet things. We make a little butter mochi cake. We made these. We had to make this in our commercial kitchen out at Naperville because there wasn't space for us to do this at Novel. So we had to make everything and then transport it. So
yeah.
we woke up at like 1 a.m, right? Waking up at 1 a.m, we after putting the baby down and getting everything ready, we stumbled in the bed at like 10 or 11, got a couple hours of sleep, and then went over to cook, right? We sold out in like 45 minutes.
So the plan was always like kind of takeout style, like you pick up and go.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
you've been. It sounds like you've been in Hawaii, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can get it in the convenience
Yeah.
stores.
So when you go to
7-Elevens,
7-Eleven, it's just in a hot box. You
Right.
if you're snackish, grab one. If you're starving, grab 3.
There's a point where you eventually made hot plates though to go.
So we have the pre-made musubis and stuff like that, and then our second pop-up we did. We started to introduce bento boxes because that's
Yeah.
another big thing in Hawaii, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you go to any musubi shop, convenience store, poke shop, you can grab these pre-made bento boxes, that are good to go. And then if you're even hungry, they'll make you a plate lunch or a poke bowl, whatever you want, right? It just depends on how much time do you have and how hungry are you. And so that's, we wanted to try and emulate that in a pop-up concept, but obviously you can only make so much and transport so much in a given time. So,
Once you get up and running, I wonder if you'd be down for like a poke shop.
oh yeah, 100%. There's definitely talks in the works. Obviously, the biggest thing is the quality of fish that you can get here versus Hawaii is completely different. I mean, in Hawaii, you can just call your cousin who went out on a boat last night and was like, "Hey, what'd you catch?" Right, and then you can.
And it's going to be more expensive to ship or import to Chicago.
Oh yeah, 100%. To get that same quality, it's fresh fish is already expensive, but
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I don't envision us shipping in a tuna from Japan anytime soon.
Bluefin tuna.
But there at the same time, there's I don't want to make a poke that isn't indicative of what I think a poke bowl is, or at least what is traditionally a poke bowl.
Yeah.
Which I think here in the States, there's a little bit of a different take on it, right? So back home, poke is it's literally fish, seaweed, soy sauce, salt on a bed of rice. That's it. There's nothing fancy. There's very rarely do you find places in Hawaii that are doing the whole toppings thing, right? I'm not dissing it because it's just its own take, right?
Yeah.
But for just what I would want to serve, I would want to do something a little bit more traditional. And to do that, you need good fish. So.
Okay. So eventually it's like you're open to more concepts like a Mocha Loco,
Yeah.
eventually,
Loco
but
Moco.
like Loco Moco, but
Yeah.
like you're really hyper focused on the musubis at the moment.
Yeah, so right now the concept as we're going to launch it will be focused on musubis and bentos to go. But we basically I think what we'll start off doing, at least until I can hire kitchen staff, is either every weekend or every other weekend, I'll go in and I'll have a plate lunch special where you can come in and just order, right? If you want, we'll do a Loco Moco Saturday, we'll do chili pepper chicken Sunday, whatever it is, and continue to expand the menu.
Do they
from
do
there.
Kamayans in Hawaii as well?
To an extent, yeah.
Okay.
Kamayan is very obviously traditional Filipino,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of Filipinos in Hawaii. Kamayan is very it's a labor of love. So again, to an extent, it's less. Kamayan in Hawaii is less about the banana leaf spread everywhere and everything's arranged, and more so just a 6-foot picnic table with 8 different pots that people have brought from their houses and just make a plate, right, and hang out. That's the kind of true Hawaiian potluck style right there.
Okay. So you get through the first pop-up at Novel. You reconvene as a group, and you're like, holy crap, what was that?
Yeah.
We survived. We killed it.
Yeah.
And we have something on our hands now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we just took a breather, and we're like, let it sink in. We're like, all right, so what next? And we did another pop-up, right? So the next pop-up we did was at Novel.
Again, Novel again?
Oh, I'm sorry. At Side Practice.
Okay.
And that's where we introduced the other concept. We called it a baon box, which is like the bento box, right?
Yeah.
And so we introduced that concept in addition to the musubis. Once again, sold out, right?
Wow.
Did another pop-up over at Drip Collective.
With those bento boxes or baon boxes, do you do pre-orders? Because I feel like catering is a more stable way or predictable income type thing rather than a pop-up.
Yeah.
Like what Justin at Dulcer's doing for his last pop-up at he's taking pre-orders for boxes, right? At Side Practice.
Pre-order is definitely something that we could is a more streamlined solution.
Yeah.
But at the time of our second pop-up, it's just one of those like, who's going to pre-order food they've never
understood.
I mean?
Yeah.
So for that, I prepped everything and brought it over in food warmers, and if they ordered it, I just assembled it right there.
Okay.
It was made to order
Gotcha.
to an extent. Same thing over at Drip Collective. We did a Kahlua pork bowl, and I just made everything and to go again. We sold out there. So fast forward a few months, and Francis and I are talking, and I don't know where the switch flipped, but it was just kind of at one point like, fuck it, let's just do it, right? And we bought the shop, and here we are. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the first tour when you unlocked the door, you walked in of the space, and it's just like you saw that potential?
Francis actually had a tour of it way before we met. Honestly, I think he was trying to find someone to go with. Like, that shop went up for sale at the beginning of 2024, right? And it had remained for sale for quite some time.
Oh, okay.
And because it was next door, they obviously approached him, and he was like, I just don't have a concept to go in here, right? For a while, I think they thought about putting something in there, maybe Novel North Side, maybe. And I'm sure you talked to Francis has a bunch of restaurateur friends, but for a while it stayed empty, and they couldn't find the right space. And then I think I came along, and we just thought about it more. Initially, it wasn't going to be Kanin. Initially, we wanted that to be more of like an incubator kitchen. We were going to call it something like Side Practice Kitchens.
Well, that's what what Drip Collective was supposed to be. It was supposed to be like a test, for coffee, for drinks.
Yeah. Going to be a very similar concept, but for the food side of the house, right? But the more and more we thought about it, it was like, well, we have a very, very viable business that we can put in here. Now, to this point, we don't want to stray far of what Francis truly does, right? Which I think is the most amazing thing in the world, which is giving people a platform. And so we are still absolutely going to be hosting people. We're going to allow people to take over the kitchen, do dinner services there. I've talked to some friends already. The guys over at Chubby Boys, Chef Chuno over at Haru Haru, and just saying, hey, like, we'd love to host a supper club. Come in and cook. Pre-sell tickets. We'll make a 20-person table, right? And you can have your a space to do it. And an actual kitchen, right? Not just a couple of burners at a coffee shop, right? And so that I absolutely want Kanin to be the launching point for folks who want to continue to do something
in the culinary space.
Yeah. We're talking to a good friend right now who's thinking about using the space to launch their business and do steamed buns, right? And so Yeah, I mean,
That's
I want it to be
exciting.
open to everybody. It's not just going to be a place to get musubi. I just want it to be the place to go get good food, right?
That's exciting. And,
Yeah.
do you live in that area too?
I do not.
Because it's not extremely accessible with like the expressways, which is why I don't make it up to side practice too often. But so then like that didn't matter to you? Or you're just like it's
Not that it didn't matter, but for us, my whole mentality this whole time, and this is something that one of my good friends, Noah, has said, and it's stuck with me. The answer is just always yes. Like, let's just do it.
Woo.
And when am I going to have the energy to do this? When I'm 50, 60? No, right?
I mean, at this point, I can't imagine. Like, so when I tell people I'm trying to start a family, they're like, get all the podcasting out of your system. and I'm like, but look at Julius. Julius is doing all these things.
I could not do what I'm doing right now without the strong support group that we have. And that absolutely is my wife, my family, my mom, my mother-in-law, just everyone, right? Because there are times where I have to call someone on a Thursday, hey, if I pop up on Saturday, can you come over and watch baby? And it's always unequivocally, like, especially if it's the grandma, so like, yeah, give me my granddaughter, just go, just leave, we'll be fine. So my sisters, they'll come over and stay the night. My sister-in-law will take them. Everyone has come together, and I'm just so blessed because, again, it's not possible without a strong support group. It's possible. It just, I can't imagine doing all of this alone, right? And so when, that whole the saying of it takes a village, like it's taking a large village to make these dreams come true, and I couldn't be more grateful.
And you got dog? Do you have a dog?
2 dogs.
2 dogs, right?
Mm-hmm. 2 dogs, the baby, a 2-year-old. Yeah, man. It just thank God for family.
Yeah, really. Do you still have family in Hawaii?
Yeah. I have a lot of family in Hawaii.
Do you feel like you guys go more over there more often, or do they come over here?
We go back more so. My immediate family, my parents and stuff, they're all here.
Okay.
But my extended family is mostly back home in Hawaii or in the Philippines.
Wow.
So in the in like the 80s, 70s, 80s, my grandfather immigrated, and his brothers, they immigrated to Hawaii to work. And my grandfather had 5 brothers.
Okay.
Right. And all of them had at minimum like 7 kids. So there's a large.
So a lot of them are still over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, if you're anyone who's grown up on the island of Kauai, definitely knows a Lagundino. Like we're just a large family there.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, majority of my family's still back home, and my mother-in-law lived there for she actually just moved back here to be closer to her grandkids. But we found ourselves visiting her pretty much once or twice a year.
Okay.
But now that she's here, maybe those trips would be a little less frequent. But yeah.
Wow. It sounds like you're juggling it all. Do you feel like you're sacrificing anything? Like, what are the trade-offs you're making?
Sleep.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe there will be a point where trying to have it all will take a toll, and I'll have to make a hard decision. I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Maybe right now it's just my head in the sand of like, I can do it all, I can have it all.
Sure.
And a testament to that is watching Francis do the same thing. Like,
okay.
I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing it with 2 early stage pop. He is like, a legitimate restaurant empire going on, and he has 2 kids. He still has his side job or his full-time design career, right? He's married. And again, shout out to Anne. I know that she probably carries a huge load, right? But for the time being, I don't have any plans to take anything off my plate until it truly gets to that point. But one thing I've learned in my career and now in this is it's all about delegation and finding the right people. And I struggle a lot with that.
Yeah.
I struggle a lot with
letting go or
control. Oh yeah.
You want the control.
I want the
As
control.
most people,
a lot of people, because you want that's your baby, right?
Yeah.
But every time when I hopefully get to teach and then watch these people take off and handle,
execute to the point where
right?
you would have done it like that.
Yeah, exactly. Then I get to take a step back. You know, I'm fortunate enough to see that happen in my career where, you know, I manage a team and all of my team is just amazing and they're all autonomous. I don't have to.
I was going to ask how like your tech, you know, experience in tech has applied to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's with anything. I've read countless leadership books, right? And every leader has a different style. I think my biggest influence as a leader is my manager, or now my skip level manager, and my current manager Nick is amazing and you know, of the same cut of the same cloth. But what I've learned the most from her is you know, you trust people to do the right work and to do good work, and you encourage them because you know, it opens the doors to opportunities that you don't really think could have existed before, right? And so when I learned to let go and not only trust but inspire other people, you know, to hey, here's what's waiting at the end of this tunnel of hard work, and to just at the end of the day foster a good culture of, it's not just, it's one thing because everyone, again, we don't work for free. People show up because they got bills to pay, but people stay because of a good manager, because of a good leader, and they want to work for you. And so I just try my best to emulate that as best as possible, right? And that's translated from my career over into entrepreneurship. A good example of that is my brother, right? I had a very recent experience, actually, like literally like last week, where you know, I said, hey, this, you know, during this service, I want you to take control of this and let's see how this is ran. And I stepped away to do something and I turned around and everything was in its place, ready to go. I was like, dude, we're good to go.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's going to be on him and us to continue to hopefully hire and train people to do the same thing. But if we can continue to do that, and like I said, the business will just run itself if you can find the right people. So, yeah.
When do you have how has it been going back and forth with City, with like any issues like that? You
know, I don't want to jinx it here. Not that bad. It's been as like infinitely smoother than I thought it would ever go.
Oh, wow.
Applying for the business license,
like they're pretty responsive.
Oh yeah, like I submitted. You know, throughout the whole process, anyone who's applied for a business license in Chicago will know, right? But you got to go through the whole application process. But no mistakes were made on the application here and there. Hey, you got to fix this. And whenever I fixed something, it was moved on to the next step, like literally within 24 to 48 hours. Like we were just moving. And then it got to the point where like, hey, we need to schedule health inspections. And I was like, okay, maybe they'll they'll get us scheduled within like a couple of weeks, a month, right? And then the health inspector called me. It's like, oh, I can come next Wednesday. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So everything's been smooth so far, knock on wood, but yeah.
So what else needs to be done in this space?
We have one final inspection to pass, which is hopefully being scheduled this week. And we have a just minor construction that we got to do out front. We got to build out a countertop and get the artwork that we're going to hand, throw a fresh coat of paint on things. And we don't have a date yet, but right now it's looking like mid to end of February.
That's soon.
Yeah, which is crazy. It's nuts. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts.
That is soon.
Yeah.
Are there any more pop-ups planned before then, or you're just kind of trying to finish this build out? Yeah, we're just finishing the build out. We're making musubis over at side practice every Sunday. Yeah,
right?
Okay.
It's easy enough. It's right next door.
Yeah.
But we're not going to.
But is this still all the way from Naperville, and then you're transporting?
No. We're making it. You're
making it at
there now.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And so we'll on site at side practice.
Right?
Oh,
at side practice. Yeah.
So, but again, it's a very limited. Right. How many, you just got to make rice in a pot and get a pan on. That's
very interesting.
Right?
I've never met anyone in the middle of a CPG brand starting a restaurant. That's so cool.
I'm probably psychotic for doing that. Trust me, I get the weird looks all the time where it's just like, why wouldn't you see that through before going? But here's the thing. And at the end of the day, like, I could have never envisioned, one, getting the opportunity to do something like Kanin, but two, getting to partner with Francis like this, right? I mean, when am I that opportunity doesn't just drop in your lap every other month,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when that door opens, you got to walk through, right? I couldn't have said no to that. I could have, and that would have been easy, but
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine if you didn't have Kanin right now. What would you be just spending? Just sleeping,
oh my
sleeping,
God, I'd be
spending more time with
dude,
your family.
Yeah, I'd have a lot more free time. That's for sure.
Back to gaming.
Yeah, hopefully, spending time and doing hobbies. I'm sure all my friends kind of give me some flack right now because I just,
Like how communal is gaming versus the community that you've built through Kanin?
Honestly, very similar. But for me, gaming was always a way to stay connected with my friends.
Yeah.
Especially when I moved out to West Coast, a lot of my friends were here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got off of work, I would just be able to still spend time with them. We just hop online and play some video games, right? And again, back then with no kids and just working a 9 to 5, that was easy. Like you eat some dinner, and then now it's 7:00, and I'll game for a few hours and go to bed, right? Or oftentimes game past midnight, and then go to work on a few hours of sleep. But it was like you said, it was communal because it allowed me to still maintain a lot of relationships that meant a lot to me. My best friends that were still here, and then funnily enough, now gaming has sort of taken a back seat, and a lot of my friends still game, but they all live a mile down the road from me, right? So it has become less of a medium for me to spend time with them because I'll just go to their house and watch football, right? Like, and then the kid came, right? And then now it's just like, okay, now I can't be screaming at my computer at 2 a.m. with the baby
more
sleeping next to
intentional,
me. Yeah. So I still hopefully, I find times here and there to hop on and play, but it's definitely nowhere near the amount that I would like to or can, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else have you been, if you had the time to think about or be curious about these days, like what are you trying to learn about?
A lot of my free time I find right now has been in commuting because I live out in the suburbs, right?
Is it Naperville as well?
I live just north of Naperville in Winfield,
okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, so the drive to the shop, no traffic is 45 minutes. With traffic is an hour and 10, right? So I find myself in the car a lot. And I find, I have found myself more often than not listening to audiobooks lately, both like fiction and nonfiction.
Okay.
I've found myself on a spell of different books of restaurateurs and chefs. So
Nice.
I just read or listened to Eat a Peach by Dave Chang. I just finished Grant Achatz' memoir, and now I'm just about to finish a book called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah. Will.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing book, right? And I don't know what draws me to that. Maybe it's inspiration for the business, obviously, or just a way to kind of understand other people's perspective. But I just find myself more curious about how other people run their business, and try to emulate their success.
Well, you hear how tough it is to be successful as a restaurateur, let alone a small business owner, right?
Yeah.
But the margins aren't that great, and it's cutthroat at times, and there's a lot of overhead, and it's like, but it sounds like it's something you really, really love to do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. This of all the businesses to pick in the world, this is by far
one of the many things that that Francis is curious about. Most recently, stocks is like picking up boring businesses, right?
Yeah.
So like car washes, laundromats, storage units. They're not flashy. There's no prestige, but it lacks soul in a way. But there's cash flow, if that's what you're looking for.
And don't get me wrong, I like making money just as much as the next person, right? And maybe in the future when we have the capital to fund things like that, or I have the capital to do that, I'm not shying away from it, right? But I would much rather cut my teeth as an entrepreneur and a businessman doing something that I love than doing something that I hate. Because if I can't put the effort into something I love, I'm definitely not going to put the effort into something that I hate. That's just my perspective on it, right? So if I can get through this, I could probably open a car wash, right? The rest of it will look easy. But to that point, time is a currency for me, right? And if I'm going to spend the time doing it right now, it's important to me that I do it on something that I love.
Yeah. Did you have that awakening of like, oh, I don't have to be trading my time for money? Like I can build something that can compound over time that I can eventually maybe step back a little bit from?
Yeah, I think I had that realization.
Whether it's like building an app or building a team.
Yeah.
YouTube, I don't know, TikTok, like these videos will last in perpetuity.
Yeah. No, I had that realization when I started working at Meta.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you saw how a platform be as powerful as what it is, and it drives either small business or content creators. And to your point, like it of itself was a side hustle from someone that just started it and it blew into something, right? Literally made in his dorm room. And you look at just all over the valley, you see those things happen time and time over again, right? So I think that's where I started to understand, like, hey, you absolutely, some of this is possible. But at the same time, I mean, my dad's a business owner. My family comes from a line of business owners, and I watched them pour their blood, sweat, and tears on day in and day out, and I just saw how hard they worked, and I said, well, if they can do it, why can't I? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to have it all and do the career and build a business. But
being so close to your parents, proximity-wise, like, what are their thoughts on the current path that you're on?
Oh man,
are they scared or are they excited for you? I know they're supportive as far as like, yeah, I'll help you out in any way, but is there any part of them that they're nervous about or scared about?
If they are, they haven't told me.
Oh wow.
My dad, my mom, so supportive, and not just like, because they have to be, right? Like, it's almost like unquestionable. Like we don't care what you want to do. Like, yeah, we got you. Wow. Right. And I watched my mom support my dad through his venture as an entrepreneur. Right. And so now, even like as I continue to do this, and I tell my dad the plans, he continue, and my parents just in general, they continue to be like, hey, that's amazing. Right.
You don't hear that too often. More often than not, you hear, don't get into the line of work I was in.
Yeah.
Because of how hard it is. But, anything worth having is going to be hard. And sometimes it's hard to understand that. And
what my dad says to me all the time is, your perspective changes when it's your name on the door. Right. And I think for him, it was it's almost like this like rite of passage, because his my grandparents owned their own business. He owned his own business. And so now to watch me become an entrepreneur myself, they've never been shy about the hard way, right? Like, go and cut your teeth and learn your lessons, right? Mm-hmm. And to that point, there's still, I think that might be a cultural thing of a lot of times, especially in the Asian culture, of like, hey, do what's safe, like, go be a nurse.
We never even mentioned like the concept of golden handcuffs, right?
Oh,
just
yeah.
like being in tech and kind of like elevating a lifestyle and beyond your means, and then like kind of being stuck to a certain position.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the golden handcuffs mean something different to everybody, but absolutely. I mean, to your point, like, again, I'm very blessed to have a very successful career, and I very much could have just been like, all right, I'm cruising, right? Like I got a well-paying job. I got a wife and daughter. I got all the PTO in the world. Let's travel, and we did, right?
Yeah.
Me and my wife, we've got to travel the world. My daughter she's 2. She's been to 5 different countries already, right? Wow. Like, it's important to me that she, has access and gets to do these things. And we could have just very much, like you said, stayed on that path of the golden handcuffs, like where I'm just stuck here and doing this. But at some point, I wanted to explore a little bit more. And it was never because I wanted to break those handcuffs of like, I need to get out of here, right? Because again, I love what I do.
No resentment, yeah.
Yeah, it's not because I hate what I do. It's because I actually have, fortunately, if I have the opportunity to do what I'm doing right now because of those. my career has funded my entrepreneurship, right? And and at times the inherent flexibility of my career has given me time to do this, right? It's
pre-pandemic. Were you all in person?
yeah.
Isn't that wild? What the pandemic did for many people?
Dude, when I was living in the Bay, I would get on a Facebook shuttle and literally I would commute an hour, right? To go 10 miles down the 101 from San Bruno to Menlo Park. And I'd go there and you get all your stuff done in person and you hop back on the shuttle and do it all over again, right? And of course there was flexibility. If you need to work from home one day, sure, not a big deal. But then, the pandemic was a game changer, right?
It's the equalizer.
Great equalizer, right? Yeah. You kind of found out who was doing the job and who wasn't, and who got to do it, who did it well, and who did it efficiently. Because that's what I think at the end of the day is a good way.
There's nothing to hide behind.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always told this. I've had this mentality sort of ingrained to me from my manager, and now I can, I'm fortunate to be able to kind of teach the same things to my team. Where it's like, I don't care if you work 12 hours a day or 2 hours a day. If you can get the same results done in 2 hours versus 12, more power to you. Guess what you get to do with the rest of your day? I don't care. Your job's done, right?
Yeah,
and you're doing your job. And we have a very high level of standard, right?
Yeah. I mean, at what point do you put more on their plate then if they consistently, finish the job in 2 hours?
That's the thing about recruiting, right? Is or just this job in general, like there's ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Right. If you find me in 6 months in July and my hair's falling out, it's because we have 180 positions to fill and I have 3 people on my team, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so again, when the job constitutes it, like, hey, you have to hire this amount of people, it very well might take you 8, 9, 10, 12 hours of your day, right? Because of the sheer volume. But at the end of the time, at the end of it all.
So there's an understanding that there will be a time where there will be more work, right? So like you said, ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's absolutely a time of when a company sees growth and needs to hire more, and there will be a time where they need to pull back. But you, as a recruiter, and your job is dictated on hiring. You want to be at a company that's constantly growing.
Like how do you continue to incentivize someone to work as hard as they can? Like what if someone just throttles their workload and be like, I'll just finish in 10 hours and call it a day?
Yeah. I think for me, the measuring effort is not necessarily the what you would call like a KPI, like a key performance indicator, right? So for example, if I have someone who needs to hire, if I have a recruiter that their goal is to hire 5 people a month, right? Oftentimes I've seen recruiters do that in a week, right? But most tech companies are on a scale of paying for performance. So there's expectations set, and you can absolutely exceed your expectations. And if you exceed your expectations, that's where the money comes. Your bonus is larger.
So there are incentives.
There's financial incentives, right? That's sort of built into everything, right? What's difficult is because it's a well-paying career. There are very much you can make a lot of money just meeting expectations, right? So that therein lands your question of like, how do you incentivize people to go above and beyond? And for me, it's always been a pride thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I instill, or at least try to instill in the folks that I work with. It's just like, hey, there's an image. Every person, every team, every manager, there's an image that we are drawing of ourselves right now, right? And you want to be the model, right? There's a saying, or the nail that sticks out gets hammered. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Don't get hammered, right? And to the point, there's a sweet spot of doing so well that you fly under the radar. You're never worried about. No one's breathing down your neck. No one's pulling up your metrics. No one is looking at how many people you've called today, right? And that's where a lot of, at least in my line of work, sometimes there's fluff work, right? Yes.
Do it just to do it, or
Do it
just
to
busy
just do it.
work.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Show face.
I don't care if you called 80 people today. How many people did you hire, right? How many people did you interview? I don't care how many.
Outcome-based
exactly.
incentives,
There's some people that incentivize that way. There's a lot of people that incentivize that way of like, oh, you need to send 40 emails today. You need to at least get 10 people on the phone today. You need to do this because that's how success is measured. And if you do these things, then inevitably, if you throw enough crap on the wall, something will stick, right? And that is it's viable, sure, right? But who wants to do that, right? Because now you just now you're miserable.
Yeah.
You know, I would much rather teach people how to be efficient and say, there's a saying that I have with my team, no wasted movement. Okay. If you're doing the work already, do it well, right? If you're going to spend your time and energy doing something, just do it correctly. Measure twice, cut once. And if you hone that skill and you do it well, your chances of success increase exponentially. And so now, you don't need to interview 20 people to get an offer.
Yeah.
You can easily do that in 5 to 6 if you just do it right. There's definitely, I'm not going to be ignorant to the fact that at the end of the day, our product is a person. When I say a product, like what I deliver to a company is a human being, right? I've hired this person, they're going to be on your team. And that product has its own mind.
Yeah.
People can make their own decisions, right? So not everything is always cut and clear. But again, if you do the right things well, your chances go up exponentially. And then at that point, if you do it well, you're on cruise. There's ways to make your lives easier, whether it's tools that are integrated, right? Like you can have someone out there writing emails for 8 hours a day, manually writing an email, or you can have someone there are tools that will just write the email for you, right? And then set it up so that if they don't respond in a week, they'll send out another email for you, right? And do you do that enough times to the right amount of people where you are finding success? So when you do that all well and you inherently succeed and exceed the goals that are set for you, that's where it transitions from, I do this kind of meaningless work to I see tangible results. And I, fortunately enough, I'm at a company that pays for those tangible results. And then why wouldn't you want to just continue that? Because then you're at a point where you're on autopilot, you're doing your job well, you're getting paid, your bonuses are going up, and then
gives you time to think about what's next too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and there's a lot of people that do different things with the time and money. Most of the, my team is fairly young, right? A few people on my team, their focus is traveling, right? And they do their job well. Go to New Zealand for 2 weeks, like why not, right? Go see the world. Go. Again, a lot of this is privilege because we get to work for a company that allows you to do that with the PTO that they give and the flexibility that they give. But they've worked hard in their career to get into that spot, to be in that position. Take advantage of it. That's the incentive right there.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like you said, what motivates you to keep going and succeeding? Well, if you don't, then you're busted back to doing this job at a not so glamorous company.
So but to just go along the lines of like pride, to me it's like, how do you develop or cultivate pride for something that you didn't even like? I don't know. It goes along the same vein of like salesy. It feels salesy.
Yeah.
I guess if you don't believe in the product,
it's hard. If you don't believe in the product and if you don't believe in what you do and why you do it, then it's hard to have pride. But here's my thing. I don't think that you need to hone in. Pride doesn't have to be like, oh, this is what I do because this is the number one thing that's important to me in this world. It's tech recruiting. Sure, there are people that love their job, and maybe there's people out there like, oh, this is my whole life. I loved it. Maybe I haven't met them yet, but maybe there are, right? But the reward, especially again in this job, in the context of what we do, doing your job well means that you have the time and energy and funds to do things that are important to you, right? Now you are working to live instead of living to work.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that's a very privileged statement because before this, I was scrubbing kitchen floors for 70 hours a week, living to work. Right. And now I've been blessed to find myself after 10 years of building this career of getting to a place in a company that values the work that we put in. And, again, I don't wake up every day going like, oh, I just love talking to people about what they do within, data science and how they do all of this.
We didn't even talk
right?
about this. Is this without college?
Yes.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm a college dropout. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What were you studying?
I was a nursing student. Yeah, I was a nursing student.
Or in Chicago?
No, in Hawaii.
Oh,
that's a whole story, man. That's
what a left turn,
dude.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
And then did you come back and do hospitality?
Yeah.
Is
I
that how
dropped
that-
out
okay.
of college.
Okay.
And I lived in Hawaii for a little bit outside of dropping out.
Okay.
It's a long story.
Well, like that's the thing. A lot of people can resonate with not knowing what their calling or purpose is, and they feel stuck.
Yeah.
And so, like, what were you doing to get unstuck?
Well, I was just surviving at the time, right? It's a funny story, and maybe my dad will see this episode and tell me not to tell the story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Where the long and the short was, I was not doing well at school. I was skipping class. I was going out. I can see the beach from my dorm. Like, I'm just going to go and hang out and do whatever, right? The grades are slipping, and then eventually one day he called me. He was like, I'm not paying thousands of dollars. Because I was very blessed. My parents are paying for my education.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not wasting money on you to go party and not focus on your schooling, right? So get on a plane, come home. And I reached the end of that leash of trust with my parents. And very defiantly, I was like, I'm not going to come home. I can make it out here. I don't need you guys. Right. And my dad, who, I get a lot of my hard-headedness from, was like, all right, have fun. Right. And I think he said that, with the whole, he'll last a few days. He'll call me back.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, and you had this chip on your
I'm
shoulder
19
now.
years old in Hawaii, like in the highest cost of living state outside of San Francisco. Like the kid's going to last 48 hours, realize he has no money and come home, right? Well, I called my cousin, who at the time was living on the island and had a bunch of roommates. And I explained like, hey, this just went down with Dad. I'm moving out of my dorm. Can I crash at your place? Right. And so I did, they charged me a very reasonable amount of money to live on the couch and help me find a job. One of my roommates was a manager at a warehouse. It was a frozen seafood warehouse, and I got a job there. And then that's where my food industry experience started. I was working in a frozen warehouse delivering, seafood and frozen meat to a lot of like high profile restaurants in Hawaii. Right.
Cool.
Working there 12 hours a day. I did that for about a year or so. Right.
And what was your communication like with your dad or parents at the time?
Honestly, it was not. I was talking to my mom.
Okay.
I hadn't talked to my dad in a long time.
But you were still talking to your mom.
I was still talking to my mom.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And, she was like, how are you doing? And things like
they
that.
They worry, right?
Yeah, they
Looking
worry.
back,
But I was so proud, right?
Sure.
I'm sticking it to my dad. I'm surviving, right? This lasted about a year and a half. And then as all things do as a 19-year-old, things start to catch up, right? Like I'm still being irresponsible with money. I'm living on a couch. And after a year and a half of doing that, which again was because I was 19 years old, living with 25, 26-year-olds. Like my cousin was a chef, who was a big part of my inspiration to become to go into the food industry, and watching him do what he did. But after a certain point, all of this caught up to me. And at one point I called my dad and was like, we made up, and I was like, all right, I think I'm ready to come home. I'm done working, literal like blood, sweat and tears in 14 hours in a warehouse delivering food. Like this is not something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think that the next step is for me to come home and just try to figure it out from there. And so I came home, but for the longest time, I had this point of pride where like I survived, I did it, and I cut my teeth and I built my character. Funnily enough, you fast forward, and I'm talking to this same cousin, years later, and I was like, man, this is cool. Like I survived that, and he looked at me, he's like, you're an idiot. Like, you think you did that alone? And I was like, what are you talking about? I had my job. I was paying rent. He's like, you didn't think it was fishy that we were charging you $300 a month to live in a house? Like, you don't think that's weird at all living in Hawaii? Like, you have the cheapest rent just out of luck? It's like, well, now that I think about it, it's like, dude, your parents were sending money to us the whole time for your food bills, for your water, your electric, your rent. Like, they were paying for you the whole time. They just didn't tell you, and they wanted to see how long you would last, right? And so now I look back on that experience, I'm like, oh, so I actually didn't do anything to an extent, right? What I did do was I got to learn a lot of the skills of perseverance, right? Or at least under the guise of perseverance. But it comes back to the whole, like, where am I without my family? I'm nowhere, right? And so that in itself, you know, they say if you have family, you're rich. Man, I'm blessed beyond belief. But yeah, that's kind of like a funny little anecdote.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
At what point did your now wife come into the picture?
My wife, we grew up together, but we didn't start dating until like college.
Oh, okay.
So we were actually in the same class from kindergarten to 8th grade. I've known my wife since I was 4 years old.
You don't hear that too often anymore.
Yeah. Known her for the longest time. She was like the childhood crush. I moved out here to Chicago at the beginning of high school, and we sort of obviously fell out of touch for a little bit. And then during college, we reconnected. We did distance for a while. We were on, we were off. And then at some point, we were like, all right, we're going to give this one final shot, but we can't. We've tried long distance and failed miserably, right? So something has to change. And so at the time I was working when I say like I was working that front desk job and they asked me to be a recruiter, I actually went to my director. I was like, I am down to be a recruiter. I would love to do this. And this is going to sound super selfish of me, but is there a way for me to do this in Portland, Oregon, where my girlfriend works right now?
Oh, wow.
And my boss at the time looked at me. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. And he literally picked up he opened his drawer and like looked down the list of like directors that managed the different offices in that company.
And they had an office?
Yeah. He's like, all right, the Portland office. He's like, oh, Mel, I know her very well. And he's like, sit down, close the door. And he literally called and was like, do you have an opening for this guy? And she said, yeah, put him on a plane. And in 3 months I had moved to Portland. Yeah.
The things you do for love.
The things I do for love, we do for love, right?
Yeah.
My wife was in grad school at the time there in Portland. And so we lived there for 5 years. She graduated and started her career. And I loved Portland, man. If things had gone a little differently, we probably still would have been there.
Interesting.
But,
what about it? I've only been once.
We met a lot of good people. And I think for me was after living in Chicago for so long, this whole flat Midwest landscape, just being there amongst the trees and mountains and changes in elevation. The people are super nice.
Did you make it to Olympic National Park at all?
Washington? Yeah. We went all over the place, man. Cool. Olympic, Mount Rainier, down even to like Bend, Oregon, like in the the high deserts. Just a beautiful, beautiful state. Some of the best times of my life, and honestly, a place that we would consider moving back to, down the line. But
yeah. That's amazing. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that you'd like to put out in the world or share?
I'm just kind of talking at this point. I don't know.
I feel like we've covered everything and then some. As far as what I had in my head, where can people find you if you want to be found?
Well, I mean, you can. I'm on all socials, right? So most socials. So my biggest one's probably Instagram. So my personal one's at kuya.jules, Julz. And then you can follow any of the shops. So kanin.shy, or Krackish Snacks. Those are the two big ones that we run. If you want to find me in person, I'm either at home passed out on the couch or I'm probably at the shop. So 5131 North Damon.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully opening here in a month or so.
Yeah. What an honor. This is great.
Oh,
you're doing it all. Does it feel like you're doing it all?
I have a bit of imposter syndrome sometimes. So,
we all do, yeah.
I feel at times like I'm doing it all, and then at times I feel like I'm not doing anything well, right?
Mm.
Like,
but there's so much power in iterations and trying.
Yeah. I heard a quote recently that raindrops fill the ocean, right? And so it doesn't have to be instant success. It doesn't always have to be immediate. And I think there's beauty in the journey. But there are also times, again, on the opposite end of like feeling, down. There are some times where I kind of look back on a thing or just like a day in general. I'm like, what did we just do? Like, how did we get that much done that quickly?
Yeah, it's fun to look back sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, just like walking into, we were prepping for our first inspection the other week and we walked like, it was like a Monday. It was like, hey, inspection's on Wednesday. And this place was a shit show. Like, I mean, it was.
I saw some stories about it. It was funny.
Yeah.
You guys were busting your ass.
Yeah. It was, there was just things everywhere. And I just have the most
Was it
amazing
a second
team.
gen space?
Yeah. It's
okay,
formerly Sweet Virginia's Kitchen.
Oh, great. Okay.
And so when we bought the place, we bought all the stuff that was in Sweet Virginia.
When you say buy, you bought the place?
We bought the inventory of the place. We released the actual space.
I see. Okay.
But when we bought the inventory that they had. So the range, the coolers. And
I didn't know that. Even if a business closes down, they still kind of hold on to some of that.
It depends on.
But the landlord lets them keep it there. It's like that's what's interesting to me.
Well, that whole time while they were trying to sell it, I believe they were paying rent the whole time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, so that was kind of the incentive to sell as quickly as possible.
I see.
Yeah, and so when we made a lot of because they were locked into a lease, right? So a lot of places when they decide to close, they'll either sell off the equipment to make some money back, or you can do what we did, which is, a turnkey solution. You effectively buy a running business. You can turn. We probably could have just turned on the lights, put on a thing that said Kanin, and we would have been good to go the next day, right? But obviously, we wanted to change a couple of things. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Appreciate you, Julius. I'm looking forward to the day we get to walk into the doors, or just even have any of the musubis one day, and there's no excuse if it's at Novel. I gotta stop. Yeah. I live like 5 minutes from here. So
do you?
Like,
cool. Yeah.
I'm in this area now.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Everyone
Thanks
else,
for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, you might even like this video. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe right here. I'll see you in the next one.